quite a technical issue on the other recording stream, but I hope this time it will be fixed. Just checking. Jacob, can you see me right now and hear me?
I can hear you in Riverside. I'm still opening YouTube. I think I can
Okay.
see and hear you.
All right,
Yes.
wonderful. Okay, we're set. Cool. Wow, that was quite a pain in the ass, but glad that it worked out. Anyway, for those of you who are joining right now, thanks a lot for being here. I'm super, super excited to be spending this hour with you. Now, this morning I reflected a little bit and I thought, wow, this is crazy. Like, this is really crazy. At the start of the year, I was nowhere on this YouTube journey. I had a couple of thousand subscribers. And last week we just hit 100,000 subscribers. So yeah, I just can't believe it. And today I want to use the time to celebrate, but also to give you a chance to ask any questions that you might have. And luckily, I'm joined here by my good friend, colleague, and also my coach, Jakob. And so Jacob is gonna ask me a bunch of questions, but if you have any questions, please put them on the chat so that we can help make sure to address them here. With that, hi Jacob.
Hello. Before we start, you want to quickly open on your phone, or I will do it at the side maybe, just because I can see us. I'm not sure if we can hear each other, but I'm just going to kick it off with the first question I prepared, and while you answer, I will check in the background. So let's start things off with a YouTube channel, because now you reached 100,000 subscribers in probably the last 7 months. That's when things really started to take off. What was the biggest mistake you made on your YouTube journey, and what did you learn from it?
The biggest mistake is one that is almost like a little bit embarrassing to admit. I remember I started with my YouTube journey 2 years ago. And at the beginning, like everyone else, I was looking for those hacks, right? For those shortcuts. And I think a few months in, I went on Fiverr and I looked for this one YouTube engagement specialist, random dude somewhere, I think Sri Lanka or India. And so that guy promised me that he would get me in every month 300 subscribers. Or was it every week? I don't remember. And I thought, cool, right? Perfect. This is better than nothing. Otherwise, this will be that much quicker. And back then, I obviously didn't know about the repercussions of that. And so I started working with him. And after the first month, I noticed how he was working. So what he was essentially doing, he was going on all these random channels, liking all their shit, and then hoping that they would come back to my channel and like back. And that actually worked, right? I had every week or month, I had 300 extra subscribers. But what I realized in hindsight, that was just the worst thing that I could have ever done. Why? Because with that, I just had all those random people clicking on my channel, right? It was like, here's a cooking channel, here's a beauty vlog, here's a gamer. And so I had all these random people clicking on my channel. And then obviously, anytime that I pushed a YouTube video, well, then Google pushed it to my subscribers, which obviously had zero interest in my videos. And so then they just didn't watch through. And so this is why my channel took so long to grow, because I tried to game the system at the start and it just didn't work out.
Yeah. I still remember when we started making videos for you that some videos did kind of well, and then there were some videos that had close to 0 views because of that initial mistake. Yeah. And it took a while for YouTube to figure it out again. Huh?
That's it.
Then when we already look back at some mistakes that you have done or we have done, how would you start it if you could start YouTube all over again? What would you do differently this time?
Two things pop to my mind immediately. And the first one is to focus on big ideas. Now, let me explain. I remember when I started, I focused on all those small ideas. I was like, here are my 3 exercises to become a better storyteller. Or here are 3 elements of great storytelling. And I focus on those interesting stuff, but not really big ideas. And so what I realized that if you want to go viral on YouTube, you got to focus on those big ideas, and those focus on the transformation. They focus on the benefit. So for example, instead of saying, here are 3 productivity tools, you say, with 2 hours, I was able to increase my output by 2 times. And so the whole video idea becomes about that. Or instead of saying, here are 3 books that I recommend, say, hey, those 3 books made me an additional 100,000 in revenue. Do you see the difference? Like that stuff, like focusing on that big idea makes such a difference. So that's the first one. And the second one, if I were to start all over, is to be much more analytical, right? Right now, you can take the transcript of every single YouTube video that's out there. So take a look at the videos that you like, take this transcript, copy it to ChatGPT, ask it to analyze it, specifically the hook, take a bunch of them, and then create with AI your own hook. And so today you don't need to reinvent the wheel every time. Like you don't need to come up with that super unique thing. Just look at what is working for some of the most successful creators out there, and then see if you can apply some of their strategies in your script and mostly in the hook.
Can you run us through your step-by-step process you use to create, let's say you make a new video next week. How would you approach that?
Okay. New video next week. First is to find the idea. And the idea usually I get through browsing on YouTube and obviously with your help as well, right? We see a bunch of videos and we're like, cool, this could be potentially applied to our topic. Once we have a decent idea of a big transformation, I then start looking for a title. And so there, usually what I do is I look at a bunch of similar titles for a similar video and then see how can I apply them to make this more my title. But there I look actually at the titles that are working out there. Then once I've found a title, I then look at thumbnails. And thumbnails is also there. I look at what is working right now and then see, hey, how can I tweak this to make it more myself? But what I do throughout that process is I just bounce constantly ideas with AI. AI by now knows my style and I just bounce ideas with AIs. And then once I have the title, the thumbnail, but also the hook of that script, I then start talking to you, to Jakob, to discuss that initial part. Because those three things, they're actually the most important part. If you don't get those right, well, then no one is gonna click on your video and no one is gonna watch. So I pay extra attention to those three things. So title, thumbnail, and hook. And after that, I go into the rest of the script. But then it's pretty easy. It's just usually what I do is I record the stuff roughly on ChatGPT. Then I ask ChatGPT to refine it and put it into my style. And then boom, that's it.
Yeah. And what part of that process do you think is the most important?
Obviously, the hook is mega important, right? Because people will decide whether they will continue watching within the first few seconds. But I guess the one thing that I learned the most on YouTube is like speak in the simplest, most conversational way possible. I think people like my videos so much because they understand it. And so anytime that I craft something, I try to speak as if I was talking to fourth graders. And it's not because I am talking to fourth graders, right? My audience is usually pretty smart, but because they want to understand it in the best way possible. And so for me, what has really helped is at the end, ask ChatGPT again, go through the script and make it more conversational, right? Make it more conversational, make it teleprompter ready, make it so that a fourth grader could understand that. And with that, I ensure that it has the most reach.
Awesome. Then while I ask the next question, do you want to adjust the layout view? Because right now I think we have a side by side, then we can see you better. It shows about you, not me.
All right, let's try this out.
So I know a lot of creators are watching this as well, right? So, and I think that's relevant for every person, business. Like you have to capture attention and hook people in. That's something you mentioned as well. How can you use storytelling to achieve that?
Yeah, storytelling in the hook, I would say there you need a micro story. Because oftentimes when people think of storytelling, they think of those big stories. Oh, let me share right now, start with my 5-minute story. In the hook, that's a terrible idea. And so if you want to include a story right at the start, you need to boom, immediately go into the action. So you say, hey, welcome everyone. Just yesterday, I had a conversation that completely changed my life. My mentor said, boom. And then you're already into the story. So if you want to use a story right at the start, at the hook, it's powerful, but make sure that you start as close to the challenge as possible. Because if you give too much context and talk for 1 to 2 minutes about all the background information, you're going to lose people in a second. So boom, start as close to the challenge as possible.
And Hustle Talks official ask a question that's a bit related to that. Is there any killer storytelling framework for short form content?
Yeah, for short form content, what I noticed, I've analyzed by now thousands of short form content and to see what works the best for them. And what I realized is that they start by stating the objective early on. They make it very clear. And most of the times it's like a challenge where they say, okay, um, over the next 3 days, I'm not gonna eat anything. I'm just gonna drink water. And so they stated up front, what is their challenge? What is their mission? What do they want to achieve? And so the moment that they put the challenge or their mission out there, well, we as listeners, we're like, okay, interesting. I need to keep watching until I know the answer. And so that's the first thing. Like state the mission, the goal right up front. And then after that, short form storytelling is just constantly going back between progress, struggle, progress, struggle, progress, struggle. So it's like, hey, you advance a little bit, but then something bad happens. Then you advance a little bit, and then again something bad happens, and so on. It's this constant back and forth. And so it's a little bit from maybe some of you have heard of this from this but and therefore from the creators of South Park. So instead of saying and, we're like, this morning I woke up and I was tired and I went then to the office and then this is super boring. The better way is to replace every and with a but. So you say, hey, this morning I woke up, but I was so tired. Because of that, or therefore, I drank this gigantic coffee, but that made me feel even worse. Do you see? So constantly bring in but therefore, that will make the short form content much more interesting.
Yeah, awesome. And also, that's something that resonated a lot with me from your work is that a lot of people, maybe you can dive a bit deeper into that. They start their story with a lot of context, right? Oh, I did that, da. But you always say the earlier the but comes or the earlier the challenge comes, the more interesting the story will be, right?
That's it. Yeah.
Then when you your journey in storytelling is also quite interesting, right? Also, Jose asked a question about that. So 5 years ago, you didn't know anything about storytelling, but how did you build your career in something related to storytelling and related to public speaking?
Yeah. For me, it actually started back then with a layoff. Back then, I was a product manager at Uber here in Amsterdam, and at one point, they decided to fire 30% of the folks. And like just like this, I was like, okay, what now, right? And my first reaction was like, let me find a similar role that is also in tech, maybe head of Germany. And I started applying to all those things. But then I even got an invitation. I thought, the fuck, what am I doing here, right? I've been in this corporate role for the past 10 years and I didn't like it. Like that stuff, I didn't enjoy it. And so why am I immediately jumping into that next thing? And so when I realized this, hey, this is actually a beautiful moment right now, and I asked myself, hey, what would I rather do with my time? And so in that time, I started to explore all those performance arts, so improv, acting, and at one point also storytelling. And when I took this first storytelling course, I realized a few things. One, that actually was not as lousy that I thought. And second, that the way they teach it was just not good. Like I took a business storytelling course and they were like, here's the hero's journey, the 17 steps to structure your story. And I was just sitting there like, dude, what the fuck, right? I know how business works. I cannot share a story with 17 steps. I can share a 30-second story, a 1-minute story. That's it. And so when I sat there, I realized like, hey, there's so much demand, but the supply is just not that good. So I think I can do that better. And yeah, somehow I had just this innate trust that I would then figure out the rest.
And how did you start working with companies then? Because back then you didn't have a YouTube channel to support you with that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, back then, so I think it was just bold, very bold. So after taking that decision, 2 weeks later, I was like, LinkedIn family, today I want to announce that I'm a storytelling coach. And obviously, I had no clue back then about storytelling. But I thought, you know what? By going all out there, I will make it happen. And so from that moment, I started posting I think back then it was every week. And those posts got actually seen by some people within my network. And actually, a few weeks in, one within my network that was actually working at Google, she reached out to me and she asked me, "Hey, Philip, I saw that you do storytelling workshops. Do you want to give a workshop?" And I'm like, sure, yeah, totally, I can do this. And so then I sat down and put together my content. Obviously, I read by then 34 books on storytelling, did tons of courses, so I had a lot of material. But then 2 months later, I made it happen. And they actually liked it so much that they asked me to come back for another 4 workshops just from this one moment. And then that's what I realized, like, hey, okay, I think I'm onto here something.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess for anyone that is also looking into training, what has helped me a lot to get additional clients, post every time. Every time that I gave a workshop, I post a picture of us, of the workshop on social media, give some social proof. Hey, this is all the cool things that I'm doing. And by that, I had a bunch of people reach out to me.
Awesome. That's so cool, right? How you got to where you are also by just launching into it. Maybe circling back a bit to YouTube, because I'm looking into the comments and questions that people are asking. And Nicola is asking a lot back on YouTube growth, which does make sense. And one question I see a lot is around niche. So Nicola is wondering, how should you be different? In his case, with a cooking channel, should you also throw in some different content or just cooking? So it's more a question about positioning yourself, I'm guessing.
Yeah. So I guess on this one, I'm sometimes maybe the wrong person to ask, because I know everyone tells you, hey, niche down, right? Niche down. And if I say, sure, my topic is specific storytelling, but at the end, I don't have a specific audience. So I thought of, hey, should I go for leaders? Should I go for creators? And I haven't made that decision, because my strategy right now is just to explode the brand and to reach as many people as possible. That being said, if I was having a cooking channel right now, I would still focus 100% on cooking channel. That's it. But what I would do is I would vary the types of videos. And so instead of saying, oh, here are my 3 recipes to da da da, then rather do a challenge. So I know, Jacob, you did it once, right? Where you say, okay, hey, I spent 100 hours perfecting the cheesecake. And so you just spend a ridiculous amount and then put a video on this out there. So I would still niche down, focus on your specific challenge, but vary it up. And so at one point it's, hey, you just talking. At another time it's you interviewing. At another time it's you doing a challenge, like sharing a life story, like a documentary. So I would just vary more the formats in between.
Yeah. And how often would you upload such a video? Because Nicola, I have my thoughts already, but he's currently posting 2 times a week and now is thinking to post daily. What are your thoughts on
Oh.
that?
I would focus on less. I would rather focus on, yeah, max once a week, but make sure that this is just high quality content. And hey,
Mhm.
maybe Nicolas is an absolute brain and he can just produce it like that. But I know if I want to put out a good video, even without the editing, it takes me minimum half a day at the start, maybe even a day to script. And like most people don't have the capacity to do this full time. So what I would
Yeah.
suggest, rather go for a little bit less, but make sure that this is just high quality. Because right now there's just so much standard stuff. And if you just share one video per week, that's already so much as well. So yeah, I would focus there a little bit on less.
Yeah, also if you think about it, like from our production workflow, right? Philip comes up with ideas based a lot on research of YouTube, what's been working. I do it as well. Then we sit together, we talk about which ideas work, we discuss which thumbnail or which picture you can use on YouTube. Then Philip writes a script, I give feedback, he gives feedback. So that's a process, the recording. And then we also have a team of people who edit the video. So there's already quite a team behind the full process. And still, we don't upload more than once a week. And it's, I think once a week is always something great to aim for. And if you are twice a week and you have fun and it fits your type of content, sure. But moving to daily, no, I don't think that's an advantage
I
from
guess
my personal standpoint.
the only
Yeah.
exception, what I do right now and what another of our friends is doing right now, is we do daily shorts. And so what I do is zero preparation. I'm just walking through the park. I put on the camera and I start speaking, sharing a story, sharing a tip. Now, why do I do this? it's not that much because I want to go viral or I want to get more people, but it's much more about just becoming much more confident on camera myself. Because I know
Yeah.
that in these long videos, I'm sometimes hiding a little bit behind the script, behind the teleprompter. But those short videos that I just put on TikTok, on Reels, on YouTube Shorts, well, that's just me talking. And so that helps crazy improve that camera confidence.
Yeah, and I think that shows. Like, if we look back at some of your old videos, Philip, you already were a good presenter because you have a background in teaching, but still, you made such a big step in the past year, in the past 2 years, from being a lot more natural, authentic, captivating.
Mm.
So I think that that definitely helped you some of your progress in
Mm.
being more confident.
Thank you. Yeah, it's always a reminder. And there also, I want to remind myself constantly, hey, would I be talking like this to my best friend? Right. And every time I see my videos, I'm like, dude, no chance that I would be talking to my friend like this. And so it's always just a good reminder. Keep it conversational, right? Hey, keep working on that because this, like speaking naturally, that's the most important skill. One of the most important skills when it comes to content creation.
hmm Then I have a question from Cynthia, but I have to check because I don't know. So Cynthia is working for a non-profit organization, and
Mhm.
she wants to use storytelling.
Mhm.
And because a lot of videos are more focused on business, so she's wondering how can I use it as a non-profit.
Mhm.
But for more context, she helps women to repair obstetric fistulas. So I have to
Mm.
quickly. Do you know what that is, or should I quickly check on
No, no,
ChatGPT?
no idea.
What is that?
Obsidian fistulas.
Yeah, maybe it's just because we're dudes. Maybe we should know, but we don't. That can be.
Oh,
So
good.
ChatGPT says, imagine a girl or woman is having a baby, but the baby gets stuck during birth for a long time. She doesn't get the right medical help in time. Her body can hurt in the inside. So
Damn, that seems to be a big
then,
problem there.
yeah.
Okay.
So let's just stick there, like a
Yeah.
problem inside, and how do you use storytelling in general for nonprofits?
So first, Cynthia, the cool thing is about your topic. Like in business, sometimes you have to be a little bit more creative, right? You have like you're working in finance, and then to come up with a super emotional story, it's a little bit harder. But for you, you actually help people. And and so this is much easier to tell stories. And so, for example, if we take the example that you gave, well, then it could be a story about a woman experiencing those problems and you sharing a little bit how you meet this woman, what is going on in her mind, what she's saying, and just going into the problem, into the challenge that she's experiencing. And then you can share also how you helped that woman overcome that problem. And that's already a
Mhm.
story, right? That's the typical customer story, how you changed the life of one of your patients or customers. And so this one will be the story that you will tell the most. The other one could be interesting is in your own origin story. You probably chose that profession right now for a reason. You probably had at one moment in your life where maybe something happened with your child. I'm assuming, right? Something happened with your child, and that was a very painful experience. And so it could be inspiring if you shared that story of why you do what you do with any audience. And so there you bring us into one specific moment where like, hey, this thing happened. I stood there, something, everything came down. And this is why I do what I do. And so bring us into one specific moment to explain why you do what you do.
Mhm. Awesome. Yeah, just the personal element, that's a big one, right? And if it's your
Mhm.
own journey or the journey of somebody you've helped or who wasn't helped, I think there's so much you can make it so much more alive if you share it from one person rather than from a problem as a whole, right? I think there's even a quote that says when X amount of people die, then it's a tragedy, like it's a problem. But if you share the story of one person, then it's a tragedy and something that people
Mm,
can actually grasp. So I think that's something that really
mm,
fits what you were saying, right?
I like that one.
Th- Then I have somebody that sees you as their role model, Philip. So you better step up now. You
Please
better give
don't.
the perfect answer. So it's Dedra, and she's teaching communication skills to have purposeful conversations. So not
Mm,
too far away from what you are doing, right? Even though it's
mm.
probably a different twist. And she's wondering, how do I teach just like you? But she also mentions YouTube. So maybe we can focus on how do you teach it in general, and then we can look into how you can teach things on YouTube.
Hmm. I guess not sure what she means by how I teach in general.
This was more my interpretation. She was like, "Hi, I'm Dedra. My question is, how do I teach just like you? You're my role model. I haven't got into YouTube yet, but I'm planning to. Please give me golden nuggets. I teach communication skills."
Okay. Let me share one or two things that have helped me a little bit more identify a little bit or get the best version out of myself. The first one is the giver's mindset. And maybe you've heard of that, but I know the first years when I gave workshops, my workshops were okay, but they weren't great. Like they were average at best. And 2 years later, I realized the problem. The problem was that back then, I was still thinking about myself all the time. I was like, I want to crush this workshop. I want people to like me. I want applause. I want people, it's money. And I was just making about myself, me, me, me. But 2 years ago, I made that shift. And I told myself every single time before a workshop, I'm here to give. I'm here to give. I'm here to give. And lately, I've even added there, and I know, Jacob, you're doing this as well, and tell myself, I'm here to have fun. So those are my two mantras. So I show up in the workshop and I'm just thinking, hey, how can I give as much as possible? And how can I have as much fun as possible? And I think on the giving side, I'm really good. On the fun side, I still have to learn. But if you show up with that mindset, where just like, hey, I'm just here to help other people and I'm here to have a great time, hey, your delivery will change radically. And that applies to workshops, to YouTube, but also in your content. So that would probably be the biggest one that I would recommend to anyone.
Awesome. Nice. Then we have Jose, who actually, Jose, you sent questions beforehand and you shared a question that we already answered at the beginning. Should we give a mini quick summary of that or should just refer him back to the beginning of the video, Philip?
Beginning of the video, if I already answered that.
Yeah. I think it's the third or fourth question I asked that is about how can you get into the world of storytelling business. And if you just go back, maybe the recording, and then you can just look at there. But we answered it there. But if you have any other question, just feel free to share it in, Jose, and then we will answer it. To make up for that, so Jose asked another question at the beginning. So he asked, what was your transition from dedicating yourself to fully do something related to public speaking?
Yeah. So that was back in the days when I lost my job. But I guess what is even more interesting there is how I actually went from not speaking in public at all to loving this. Because just as context, if you had met me in 2016, I would not like to be in front of anyone. The moment that I had to give a speech or presentation, I freaked out. I was so nervous. And so that only changed when I was actually in New York in 2017. And so back then, I was a lousy storyteller, a terrible public speaker. But there was one thing that I did that absolutely changed my life. And that was constructive embarrassment. Now, for those of you who have not heard of that, constructive embarrassment is when you put yourself on purpose in an embarrassing situation. And so back then in New York, I started doing those random weird exercises where I would just go into the street and make a fool out of myself. I'll go to the next person in the street and I'll ask, hello, sir, excuse me, can I give you a hug? I was like, sure, yeah, bring it in. And it gives me this bear hug, this man hug. Or I would go into the coffee shop of Starbucks and just lie down on the floor. Or go in front of the McDonald's and say, hey, what's up? Welcome to McDonald's. Like pretend to be a greeter. And so I did these really weird, awkward exercises for like 30 days when I was in New York. Now, in case you're wondering, why does it help so much? Because that stuff helps you care less about what other people think about you. We get so much in our head. We get so nervous speaking public because we're like, what if they judge me? What if they think I'm not smart? What if they think this is? We get nervous because we care so much about being rejected by the group. And so constructive embarrassment, that is the single most powerful tool to care less about what other people think. And so only in that time, I actually realized like, hey, it doesn't have to be like this. Like I can live a more free life and I become this great speaker, but just giving less fucks.
And you also, me giving your workshops sometimes as well, knowing that, you also have a CEO technique that can help people to be okay to go into those uncomfortable situations. How does that look like?
Yeah, true. Yeah, at the start, when I started those 30 days challenges, I realized that I did a bunch of things that were not ideal. And so the first one was I started procrastinating. I was walking around the street like looking for the perfect opportunity. But obviously the perfect opportunity is never there. And so what I started doing is instead of procrastinating for hours, I started counting in my head. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, boom, and just go for that. So that's the first one, count. The second one is embrace. The moment that you do a challenge, like your reaction will be like to jump up, run away, and leave this country forever. But what I would suggest, like, resist that urge, like, embrace the feelings. Notice what is going on in your body. What is happening? Because when you can embrace the feelings and become aware of them, you can become aware of them in that public speaking scenario as well, because it's the same bodily sensations. So that's the second, embrace. And the third one is own. When I did those challenges at the start, let's say lying down on the floor of Starbucks, person walks up to me and asks, hey, why are you lying on the floor? I would say, oh, I'm doing this constructive embarrassment challenge. I want to be more confident, blah, blah, blah. I made up excuses. But I realized after, the better approach is to just own your decision, own it. So when someone asks you, you just say, thanks for asking. I just felt like doing it. Boom, that's it. And so CEO, count, embrace, and own. That has helped me get the most out of constructive embarrassment.
So let's say I was afraid at public speaking. I tried a few stuff like that. So I went out, I got rejected, I went for a no, I did constructive embarrassment. And let's say now I start to feel really comfortable speaking and I also start enjoying it. What's the number one tip you would give to somebody who is already a solid speaker but wants to go to the next level?
Got it. I would say the biggest step that I've made from solid to then, first I want to say incredible, but I want to describe myself as incredible. To good speaker was improv. Improv. Like back then, I was still like a little bit rigid, very much in performative mode. And improv has helped me to be okay with anything. One, I joined improv group. And actually, I did one improv group last year where I joined a Dutch improv group. I'm German. I speak Dutch good, but it was improvising in Dutch, singing. Terrible. Was a nightmare. But I also started playing those improv games. So just get a random topic, random speech topic, and just start improvising a speech on the topic on the spot without any preparation. You can do that with a friend, like Jakob and I have been doing that like tons, or even by yourself. But improv is the absolute secret to becoming a better speaker. Why? Because it helps you be okay when things go wrong. Because in improv, you mess up all the time. All the things you're like, this is so bad. Why did I say this? But then you learn whatever you say, it's okay. And you learn how to trust your brain. And that deep trust, this translates into all of your videos, into all of your presentations.
Speaking of improv, just a crazy idea that came to my mind, because you also developed some speaking games. Would you be willing to try out one time to improvise here in a live video on YouTube?
Yeah, let's do it. Do you want to give me a random topic there?
Yeah, I'm gonna wait. I think I can. So, because you developed those speaking games, right? Speaking.games where you can practice for free. Are you able to see the screen?
I am, yeah. But then reduce the time to prepare to very little, and maybe yes, maybe to 10 seconds. Yeah. So I'll be improvising right now a random story on one of the 3 objects, and hopefully one of the 3 objects triggers a memory. So let's try this out.
Yeah. All right. And if you include even more objects, bonus points from me.
Okay, what is it? Water bowl, roof rack, marker. Ooh, tough one. Water bowl. 2 days ago, I was here in my living room, and I started reading. And I have this goal where I want to read every day 10 minutes. 5 minutes in, I look at the book and I think, hey, how much did I remember? And dude, you remembered nothing. You're like 5 minutes gone. You remember nothing. And so I thought, how can I fix this, right? And the only change that I've made since is actually, I'll get it. I have this little marker here that I start. And so every time right now I read it, I just put everything in green. Can I say now that it has changed the way I memorize things? Not really, but I think I have retained now things slightly better.
Awesome. Nice. Big applause.
That was actually hard because no big memory came to my mind. But hey,
Yeah, but let's break us through the process. All right. So what were some of the techniques you implemented to tell that story better than most people would?
Yeah. So what I do in those moments is I just try to focus on one specific moment. I try to think, is there one specific moment where any memory pops to my mind? And so in this case, it was just me reading the book in the marker. And so you can almost visualize myself being there in my living room, reading my book 10 minutes in the morning. So what I try to do, especially with those short stories, just focus on one moment. And then when you share that moment, share what is going on in your mind, like share your thoughts, share maybe what someone else said. So what was the dialogue? And also share maybe how you were feeling, right? You're like, this is so awkward. So share a little bit what is going on in your thoughts, but also on your body. And that's usually it. That's my storytelling technique. Zooming into one moment, boom, that's it.
Mm-hmm. And we have a scientist from Harvard watching, really the scientific community here. And he says that when he's talking to the camera, it still feels awkward. How did you get to the stage where the story you presented was not a performance mode, but more like you just talking to me, like you would have shared it the same, right? One-to-one, if we've been in a room without the camera.
Yeah. First, I got to acknowledge that I'm still work in progress there. I oftentimes see myself slipping into performer mode. So this is something that I'm consciously working on myself. That being said, what I want to do, what I shared a little bit earlier today is I try to record many more videos where I'm just talking on camera. Hey, it's me walking through the park. And right now I'm just thinking, what do I want to talk about? Okay, this is what I want to do. Boom. And I start recording myself on camera. Do this more and more, and then rewatch it, right? And ask yourself, hey, would I speak like this to my best friend? And every single time ask yourself, would I speak like this to my best friend? And once you've done that then for a month, you're like, all right, yeah, I think I'm getting a little bit closer. I'm still far away, but I'm getting closer. And so there it's just getting more reps.
And how often do you record and just make upload the first try versus how often do you make a second or third or fifth version?
Right now I have a rule. I'll just do one try only. This might be a little bit too radical for a lot, but I noticed at one point I started recording those and it was like, I took 10 takes for like a 60 seconds video. And I thought like, dude, what the fuck, right? I don't want to be this guy that just constantly has to re-record and have the perfect take. So right now I have a one take only rule, at least for those short videos, where I'm like, hey, the moment I hit record, I'm going to publish this thing, period.
Wow. What does that do with you then?
It just helps to that I'm on and that I don't look for perfection, because oftentimes I'm like, I think maybe I could have improved this or this. And then we always try to squeeze out the last 5%. Not needed. What I and what most people need is just extra reps, getting more comfortable. And this is what you do by just recording yourself, uploading it. That's it.
Did you already make the daily video for today?
Not yet. I wanted to do this after today because then I'm in a better energy. So that's another tip.
Okay.
Usually I try to do those things in the moments where I feel the most high energy. So for example, after this call, I'll be in crazy good energy. After I go for workout, after I do meditation. So I usually try to do that after.
Yeah. Or you do it now, right? That's also live. Oh, I'm recording this live video and the first try it went, yeah. Will be fun. Well, we already did a good challenge. I'm the type of person that always likes to challenge Philip to do more things. How else did you help? Like you mentioned already, constructive embarrassment, doing improv. What else helped you to move from terrified at public speaking to making this your job?
Hmm. Hmm. I guess it's more this boldness where I just how I operate is even though I have zero track record in something, I'm like, all right, I got this, I can do this. And I think it's this boldness that actually got me started the most. And so, for example, when I had a little bit more time, when was that? When I started on storytelling, I also thought, hey, let me explore stand up comedy. And so, without having ever read a book on comedy, without having ever taken a course in comedy, I signed up to be a stand up comedian here in Amsterdam.
That's so cool.
And so, fast forward, I was at this open mic night in front of, I think it was back then 150 to 180 people, gigantic. And like storytelling is easy, but stand-up comedy is freaking miserable because people there, they're just there for the laughs. So it's so hard. It was the most nerve-wracking moment that I've had probably in my entire speaking career.
Mm.
But I learned so much for that. And now, how does that tie back? And how does it tie back to my career? I think I just try to put myself like those big challenges constantly. Like every time I'm like, okay, let me do this. Boom, TED Talk. Let me do this. Then, hey, let me right now sign up for the stand up thing. Boom. Or I'm right now recording a different type of video, right? That I'll do on Thursday. And so I constantly try to put myself into those big moments, like be very bold on that, even if I have no clue, and then just try to make it happen. And that has probably
Mhm.
been the thing that has helped me the most accelerate on this career path.
And the TED Talk you gave, was that after the stand-up comedy or before?
That was after. Mm.
Okay. You want to run us through, because you told me that there was very little preparation compared to the typical TED Talk. How did
Yeah.
that go?
Yeah. So most people have like month, right? They prepare like crazy for that. And so what I did, for those of you who want to give a TED talk, I went on the TED website. I looked for all the TED talks in proximity in Europe, and I just pinged them on LinkedIn and I said, "Hey, I'm this cool guy. Are you interested in a talk?" Not much more. I just said, "Hey, I had a cool idea." That's it. Next day, get a call, unknown number. I pick it up, and this guy said, "Hey, this is Mike from TEDx Remont, south of Netherlands. Hey, we had a speaker dropping. I don't know whether it's faith, or yeah, with a coincidence, but do you want to chip in? Do you want to speak?" And I asked him, "Yeah, cool. I'd love to, right? This is my dream. When is it?" And he said, "Well, it's next week." I'm like, what do you mean? Like in 6 days? Dude, this is crazy. But he said, "Yeah, yeah, but can you do it?" And for a second, I thought, can I do this right at this? I want to do it real well. But then I decided that, hey, yeah, I'm going to go for that. And so after that, it was probably the most productive preparation I've ever had in my life. Every day I was just working for 14 hours on the script, refining every
Oh,
single thing, talking to coaches from the US, sharing it with friends, and then just making it happen. And so I prepared this TED Talk for 6 days. I then went on the TED stage and it actually went really well. My talk was at the end selected by TED, by the Global TED organization, as an editor pick. So they featured it on their website for a couple of
nice.
days. And so, yeah, it was really cool moment. And it was just one of those other moments where I'm like, hey, I have no clue about this, but I'm gonna go for it.
If you had to give a TED Talk in November, let's just pick
Mm.
that day. TEDx The Hague. How would you prepare this time? But you know already a few months in advance.
Good point. I guess the only difference this time is this time I know much more dirty strategies from YouTube, right? To hook someone's audience, to keep them engaged. Like when I gave my first TED talk, I had no clue. I knew nothing. I knew very little about public speaking, nothing about storytelling. And so right now, I would just take a YouTube script and just put it on steroids and just think, how can I craft the most incredible TED talk on this planet? But when it
Mhm.
comes to topic, yeah, I don't have a specific topic in mind yet. I feel that in order for me to share another TED Talk, I need to have a really big idea where I bring in some unique perspective and unique research. And I don't want to push it too much, but I will do another TED Talk, but that only when I feel like, hey, I have this incredible idea that I can inspire millions with.
Awesome. Nice. Then, shall we do 3 more questions before we wrap it up? What do you think?
Yes, 3 more questions.
Okay, so I'm going to take one more prepared. Maybe if there's one more in the chat, I will take that, and then I'll come up with the final question. So Jose, he also asked, how do you divide your time? Because that's something that's stunning to me. You wrote 3 best-selling books. You give workshops sometimes in LA, all around the world. Then you make the weekly YouTube videos, and then to the side you make a website, speaking games, a brand reframing. How do you do that? That's something that's always fascinating to me.
Yeah. I guess when it comes to giving my trainings and workshops, what I started early on, I didn't want to give any agency work or do some small workshops. So anytime that I give a training, it pays really well. And so even though I didn't know that much when I started, I just already started at a very high price point. And so I knew back then, hey, if I just give 2 workshops per month, I could easily cover all my expenses per month. And so I just started at a very high price point from the start because I felt that I never want to compete to the bottom. And so that's one. And the second one, obviously, outsource a lot. I still do sometimes a little bit too much, but for example, you, Jakob, right? Jakob is giving a bunch of my trainings. That's incredible. Then I have a VA that does a little bit my admin work, which is also super useful. Then I have a phenomenal editor that does all the editing. So I just always think like, hey, is this something that I need to do, or can I give this to someone else? Because the money that I could make in an hour is obviously much higher than if I spend now 1 hour editing, which anyone can do a million times better than I. So I'm constantly asking myself, hey, do I need to do that? And I feel that the only thing that I actually need to do is, yeah, to define the strategy, to give some of the workshops, not all of them, and then to come up with crazy good content. And then my goal is just to focus much more on brand, which is more the long run game. So for example, right now I don't do any sales activities because I just feel like, hey, this is wasting my time. I'd much rather have a little bit less revenue in the short term, but rather have this such a gigantic brand in the long term that people will just approach me. And so I'm playing much more long-term game there.
Yeah. How would you do that if you would not have the financial possibility to outsource as much?
I feel that today, sure, there are some people that are just completely broke, right? But even for the people that are very broke, like, hey, you can afford to pay an editor because if you just publish 1 video per week, it's not that much, right? Then if you find someone cheap, maybe it's for a 10-minute video, it's like 100 euros or so. If you want to have a VA, well, you can find a VA in the Philippines. I have mine in the Philippines. I pay mine 8 euros an hour, which is premium in Philippines. You can find someone there for 3 euros an hour. So I would say the money component, unless you're super broke, still think, how can you outsource it actually? And yeah, if you cannot do that at all, well, then just do everything yourself.
Awesome. Then a final question. That's interesting. Yeah, not a final question. Well, I have one final question from the chat, and then one final question from that I prepared. And the question I don't fully understand. Maybe, what's the flavor of your brand according to you?
Pooh, that's a tough one. I don't think I can answer that. Why? Because sometimes I feel so awkward about branding talk, right? I have this one friend and she's incredible in branding and she can talk about the feeling of a brand, the touch of a brand. And I listen to her and I'm like, she's genius, but I just it's not my language. My language is I'm more on this analytical nerdy camp, but much less on this whole creative branding space. So I would not do it justice. I would give you a very poor definition right now.
Yeah, I guess if you would be a flavor, you would be something that is very practical and also very simple, because most storytelling advice out there is super complex. but you just break it down in a way that's super simple to understand. That's what matters, and
Mm,
that would be. I don't know what flavor that is, but something that
true.
fits. Yeah, we can ask ChatGPT after, so we find out your flavor.
Yeah.
Nice. Then, okay, this is also, of course, a little bit of a mini celebration, right? We reached 100,000 subscribers, which is
Oh. I think actually Jacob just left me on this last question. Am I by myself right now? Okay. Hey, then I guess I'll just do the wrap up. Anyone that is listening right now that has joined me on this journey, I want to thank you so much. Jacob, you're back.
yeah, I don't know what I'm back. Yeah, I wanted to trick you a little bit to make it more
Doing a closing
supervised.
statement. But then let's go back to your question.
Okay. What's your focus of the next year? Now you reach 100,000 subscribers. What's next?
Mm. Three things. Number one is peace a little bit more. And that sounds a little bit weird coming from me. And I have tried this a little bit before and it didn't work that well. But hey, I know right now, hey, I've done cool stuff, right? I'm really happy where I am. And so far, what has gotten me there is this hustle energy where I always want to do more and more and do more and almost have my self-worth about how much I achieve. And so I want to move away from that. And so that I just throughout the day, I'm like, hey, I'm good as I am. I don't need to prove anyone. And then just let myself more be inspired through presence, through the divine, and just let creativity flow me instead of having this hustling energy. And so this is the first one. It's much more like to let go and to feel peace. And please keep me accountable where this is in half a year, because I don't want to keep it there all the time.
Yeah, peace.
And then the second one, and I thought for a second, oh, it's massive YouTube explosion, but I think this is pretty much contradictory with this. Obviously, I want to reach more people, so yeah, I think I'll just keep going on YouTube, and hopefully this will expand much more. But I guess one more concrete thing which we launch in probably Q3, like September, October, is a storytelling program for creators. So anyone that wants to use more stories in their videos, that wants to tell those captivating stories and really stand out from the crowd, this is the program for those folks. And so, yeah, if anyone feels that they want to join there, I think I have a sign up link on my website. If not, just ping me a message. But yeah, that's another big one that I want to launch because I feel like, hey, what I've learned so far, I want to give back to more people because the stuff that I learned, a lot of other people can benefit from. And so I'm looking forward to launching that program for creators.
Then let's wrap it up. Bring us some final words, Philip.
Oh, yeah. Now with that, anyone who's watching right now, I want to thank you so much. Like, I would have never thought that this is possible. Like, if you'd asked me a bunch of years back, I actually looked at my 10-year goals like a couple of years back and was, oh, have 50,000 subscribers on YouTube. And right now we've already reached this and far beyond this. And that is only possible because of you. And so I want to thank you so much for being part of this journey, for supporting me with your comments, with your feedback, with your encouragement. I'm super, super grateful to be on this path and to be able to inspire you so that you can inspire others. With that, thank you so much for dialing in. Apologies for the tech mess ups that we had at the start. And then see you in the next video, which will be published on Thursday.
Bye-bye.
Bye.